But then if we come back to, okay, but we're trying to do that, but we also have all of these other things on the place, and we have this economic environment that feels a little wobbly at the moment. So where is this in the priority list of companies? And this is where the data gets really interesting and tells us that we're still thinking about this a little too reactively, at least for some organizations. In February 2023, when there was a lot of headlines about the economy, we asked, what things are most immune-proof in your budget? And integration and automation were towards the bottom, still fairly healthy in terms of being immune-proof, much more so than saying no area was immune to budget reduction. But we had things like customer experience and data analytics and back office applications. And then as that month wore on and people really started to dive into the initiatives that they were going to carry them through their first half of 23, all of a sudden we asked them the same question again in March, and integration and automation shot up the list. Why? Well, you're probably smiling with me, because if you've done this for a while, you know that you can't do better customer experiences without integration and automation. And you can't do things with back office applications or data and analytics unless your systems are talking to each other effectively. So, like has been for a long time, and I've been working with integration for a long time, it has this problem where it still sometimes gets thought about reactively. And what I'm here to tell you is we need to be more proactive, and we need a more holistic automation strategy where how we're connecting things is the natural question that gets asked, and not just in the automation strategy, but in the overall digital strategy. And what's interesting is, once again, unsurprisingly, when we look at where people are at, we ask them, where are you on this sort of holistic automation strategy? And most organizations will tell you that they have one. And if they're a more digital business, then they're far more likely to say, yeah, we have an automation strategy. And that's fantastic. This is exactly what we need, because having that is really tied to digital business transformation success. But then when we ask them, okay, well, what are the problems you're encountering? Great, you have a strategy. What's stopping you from executing effectively on it? And we talked about the top one first, the KPIs to measure success. But the other three I really want to call out for you today. Types of automation don't work well together. Line of business leaders agreed with that even more than IT leaders. Everything feels like it's bits and pieces and nothing's kind of coming together. So that's a pretty big one. There's a statement where he said we wanted business users to do their own automation, but it's too difficult for them. And that was actually more agreed with by business leaders than IT leaders. So they're struggling. The tool sets, some of the early low-code tool sets were not delivering the kind of capabilities, and the use cases were far too simplistic before they needed to get IT involvement. And then, on the flip side, something where IT was agreed more strongly was it's difficult to spot automation opportunities. And that makes a lot of sense, because the people who understand where the automation opportunities are in the business. But the people historically who've been able to do most of the integration work and take point on that have sat in IT. And it felt like the two shall never meet. So it's creating a bit of an issue, particularly if you don't have tools that are bringing that collaboration together and bringing in multiple automation modalities into a single place, which is where we turn to Gen AI. And so Gen AI has the potential to really supercharge these low-code tools and really do even more for development. And when we look at, where organizations are at today versus where they were at with generative AI in terms of investments, you can see that you have just over a quarter that are already making investments, and another half that are at least doing some initial potential use cases. So then we asked folks, okay, well, where do you think you're going to have the biggest impact on that? Number one was software development. Number 2 was product development and design. And then we start getting into some of the business functions. But I think what is hard in a question like this is software development might also be to support customer engagement, right? And so I think what companies are trying to get their heads around is, how do we kind of bring this all together? And there's a bit of a challenge, because those Gen AI capabilities are slowly being integrated into low-code development tools like integration tools. And that's one half of the equation that can help us take advantage of that broader bench. But if we're still thinking reactively about integration and automation, like I showed you in that slide that showed the 1 month apart view, the problem is you can't make investments in Gen AI and be successful if you don't have an integration and automation strategy, because your data is oxygen to AI. And if you don't have good oxygen, good data, you will not have good results from any Gen AI you put in place, whether that's for knowledge management applications or conversational applications. And so a lot of that initial investment will end up in a place like software development for integration. So that's the one side. You need to be thinking more proactively about integration that way. I think the other piece of this, though, is focusing on how this can unlock more capabilities for those integration developers, regardless of what their background looks like. Are they somebody that has been developing their whole life, or are they newer to development? This gives the capability for them to do at least a bit more than they've been able to do before, as this gets rolled into more integration tools, and increase governance, and increase compliance, and increase capabilities around metrics, and help your organization focus more on outcomes versus outputs.